$200,000 gone. At 75, she was forced back to work. And it all came down to one meeting. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket hummed. It was 10 p.m. Carol pushed a cart of yogurt containers, her hands aching from the cold. 9 years earlier, she had $200,000 set aside for this exact stage of her life. Now, it was gone. Carol was a retired school librarian, a woman who had spent her life organizing facts, checking details, and helping children find answers. This is the story of how doing everything right left her with nothing. At 65, Carol's life was a picture of a well-earned retirement. For 40 years, she'd been the head librarian at Northwood Elementary in Columbus, Ohio. She'd never made a huge salary, but she was methodical. Every paycheck, a portion went into her 401k. No exceptions. Her home was paid off. Her garden was her masterpiece, a small patch of earth where she grew prize-winning hydrangeas. She had her pension and a nest egg of just over $500,000. It wasn't a fortune, but her spreadsheet showed it was enough. On her last day of work, her colleagues threw a small party in the library. They gave her a card signed by hundreds of former students. She thought the hardest part was over. What she didn't know was that the biggest financial decision of her life was still ahead of her. The first 2 years of retirement were great, but a quiet anxiety crept in. Watching the market's volatility made her nervous. A friend from her book club mentioned a man she used, a financial advisor. "He makes your money work for you," the friend said. Carol made an appointment. The advisor's office was on the top floor of a glass building downtown. He was charming, confident. He looked at her simple portfolio and shook his head with a sympathetic smile. He used words like proprietary strategies and exclusive products. He pointed to one in particular, a special kind of annuity. It promised protection from downturns with the upside of the market. It sounded perfect. "This is what the smart money is doing," he told her. Carol felt a wave of unease. Less than half of Americans feel confident in their financial decisions, and at that moment, she was one of them. The paperwork was an inch thick. "Don't worry about the details," the advisor said, tapping the signature page. "That's what you pay me for." She told herself he was the expert. She was just a librarian, so she moved $200,000. It was nearly half her life's savings. She walked out of that office feeling like she had finally secured her future. In reality, she had just sealed its fate. For the first year, everything seemed fine. The quarterly statements arrived in thick, glossy envelopes. The numbers were complex, but the final balance seemed to be holding steady. A problem was hidden in the fine print. The product was a maze of fees. A 2% management fee, a 1.5% mortality and expense fee, and hidden commissions. All told, nearly 4% of her money was vanishing every year before it had a chance to earn a single dollar. That was $8,000. Gone. Every year. By year 3, the market hit a rough patch. Carol's old, boring index funds dipped, then recovered. But the high-fee annuity plunged. When she called the advisor, his tone had changed. He was brisk. "Markets fluctuate, Carol. You have to stay the course." By year 5, staying the course felt like sinking. The fund never recovered its initial value. To cover simple living expenses, Carol had to withdraw money. But each withdrawal now came with a steep surrender charge. She was paying a penalty to access her own money. A penalty for the privilege of losing it. She was now one of the millions of Americans who regret their financial choices. But regret doesn't pay the bills. The confident man in the glass office stopped returning her calls himself. Now, she only ever spoke to his assistant. He had already made his commission. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in October, 9 years after she signed the papers. She was 74. A vicious storm had torn through her neighborhood. The estimate came back, $14,000. It was more cash than she had. She called the advisor's office, her hands shaking. The assistant put her on hold. The silence on the line stretched for 2 minutes. Then 3. The assistant's voice was flat as she ran through the numbers. Carol interrupted her. "Just tell me," she said, "how much of my money is left?" Another pause. "After the surrender charge, you'd be able to withdraw about $18,500. Carol sat at her kitchen table. The phone felt heavy in her hand. $18,500 from $200,000. The rest had been vaporized. She hung up the phone. She didn't cry. She just sat there, in the quiet of her house, with the sound of water dripping from the ceiling. The first 24 hours were a blur of shame. She told no one. How could she explain it? She, the careful one, the planner. But Carol couldn't afford paralysis. The roof needed fixing. The property tax bill was coming. Within a week, she had sold her car. At 75, she found a job stocking shelves at a local grocery store from 6 p.m. to midnight. The physical work was brutal. She works 4 nights a week. The money she earns just covers her bills. There is nothing left over. Her garden is overgrown now. She's too tired to tend to it. The hydrangeas have withered. She is no longer retired. This isn't a story about a bad investment. It's a story about a system that is incentivized to sell complexity over clarity. Carol didn't fail a test of financial literacy. She was sold a product perfectly designed to profit from her trust and her fear. Carol's story is a painful reminder that the most important document in any financial decision isn't the glossy brochure. It's the fee disclosure. Those few lines of fine print can be the difference between a secure retirement and a return to work.